My name is Alazar. This is a reflective video based on Dr. Cecilia Musselman's lecture and what we've done over the course of the semester. So the course of the semester has looked at 4 different units, each unit being Unit 1, Knowledge Front, Unit 2, looking at literature review and how we structured one, Unit 3, looking at Wikipedia articles and how to enhance, or how to, dumb it down to the views of the public. And Unit 4 being looking at a multimedia project that will be used to look at the public and kind of address topics that we've also researched throughout the semester. Unit 1, in my case, I did using NF-kappa B, which is a indicator for cardiac myocytes and other pathways that have gone through signaling and pathways of individual cells and individual, persons. So within this unit, I ran into a few difficulties when I proposed it because I found it more difficult over time. So this unit looks at a very, colloquial or intellectual article, research article, that's been done by research facilities nationwide, actually. NF-kappa B is very common and it's studied, and it has been studied and will be studied continuously over time. And within that study, though, I picked this one article that I thought would be worth reading. And in my time reading it, I found it very complex and very difficult. But after I was done reading it as well, I found it to be one of those things that I could also give hindsight to. Because the purpose of the Knowledge Fund is to kind of propose a simpler method to addressing it to people who don't understand what it is. So I pretty much took the initiative to simplify it and kind of address it to like any common reader of the field, or actually of any field. As a biology major, this specific topic kind of did interest me in many ways, and I've also worked with NF-kappa B as well throughout my past experiences at work and so on. So NF-kappa B and how it relates to heart function, how it relates to globular cells, how it relates to epithelial cells, and other parts of the body, as well as the bones, and as well as the immune system. So Unit 1, for me specifically, I thought was a little difficult at first because you get that one edge and one area where you're going to get stuck. And I feel like every single student would have gotten one of those in almost every unit. So when I looked at Unit 1, I kind of looked at NF-kappa B and said, okay, great topic, let's go for it. And then over time, though, it got more difficult because it wasn't just this one article I wanted to read, because it was so narrow-minded, right? It looked at one specific group of people who studied NF-kappa B and what it did, and it wasn't really looking at other studies as well. So I felt as though I was really constrained and held down to just one paper, whereas I should have incorporated other papers into it. But remember, this is a knowledge fund, and we're trying to narrow down just one area or just one article down to very common structure. So for the grade, though, I received a B-, and that was a little disappointing for me at first because I thought I tackled it really well with the rough draft, and then after the draft, I kind of did submit the final draft, but not that big of a change when I did submit the final draft. I did get a few peer reviews who also said, change this around a little bit. I specifically remember my peer review from Sarah, and she looked at it and said, I think that you should, kind of read it back to yourself and kind of analyze the grammatical aspect. The information is correct, or I think it's correct, and I think she understood that it was correct also, her being a bio major. And she said that, there are some parts where it's a little iffy. There is, a few common errors where you missed apostrophes or S's or, little grammatical errors. So I went back and fixed those, and then, when I read it back, it came back to me to be okay. So what does that mean to me? It means that, to me, I have a great understanding of the field. I have a great understanding of NF-kappa B and what it means and so on. But to another person, it could also hinder them because they don't understand what it is. So that's what I think I kind of lacked on within that area, and I think I should have also improved in that area. So Unit 2 looks at a lit review, and this one was the core of, I think, the class. And it looks at SPDEF, which is the one that I picked, standpointed derivative ETS factors. And what that does, what I did with that is, in particular, was kind of look at conglomerate number of works done by a group of scientists within the Boston area, as well as some in California, and what they've done to kind of just like from its discovery to what it is, to what's known about today, and how it interacts with different pathways, and how it also is correlated between other kinds of cancers rather than just prostate cancer, which is what it was discovered primarily to be a part of. Throughout this Unit 2, I figured that there were a lot of difficulties because I did pick a very, very, very specific topic, and the fact that it's so specific kind of hindered me and hindered my grade significantly, because there were so many areas that it could improve, and there were so many facts that I should have added, and that it would completely exceed over my 3,000 word limit if I had just continued on with it. I also felt as though like this paper could have enhanced parts of the field, as well as people of my peers, my colleagues, and also members of members of the science field as well. So I felt as though the lit review was a little difficult and a bit complex, but I think areas to improve on would be most definitely to look at, I guess you want to say, more time in for me, kind of devote more time to the work, and kind of know that I should have a constructed thesis and have a constructed intro, and more or less kind of just conclude it off very well and thoroughly, like I did on this paper. My peer reviews by my peers specifically looked at my paper and said it was a little too complicated for them to understand, and I think I understand where they're coming from. Because I've worked with the SPDF for such a long time, and along with NF-kappa-B, like I mentioned in Unit 1, they kind of go hand in hand. But with Unit 2, what I did specifically was kind of just do what I did the past year, and kind of just, collected all that information and just threw it on paper. To me, it all makes sense, of course, but to other people, obviously not. So I think that's where we kind of had a big difference in understanding. I felt as though Professor Musselman looked at my paper and said, oh, this could be so much better. But, again, with the time constraint and with the idea that, with the course overload with other classes going on, I think it's a little bit more too difficult for me to say, oh, okay, this is perfect. Unit 3 and 4 looked at the public and addressing the public, and how each unit, Wikipedia article, and the public audience or a multimedia presentation would kind of look at the people and kind of have them read over what I had done. Unit 3 specifically was a Wikipedia article that I proposed on SPDF, because if you research SPDF or SAM-pointed ETS factors, you can kind of just see the fact that on Wikipedia it's just like 3 lines. So I enhanced it a little bit, but my peer reviews came back and they said, oh, this was just too much information, you need to dumb it down. A person that doesn't understand genetics wouldn't really understand what this is, because a Wikipedia article is so simplified nowadays, as opposed to what I proposed. I also felt like that was very shortcoming of them, but I know it's not fair for me to say that was shortcoming of them, but it's kind of the idea that I wanted to imply, is that SPDF is not some kind of topic that any random person just picks up and just reads about. You have to more or less kind of be really interested into SPDF to kind of write about it, or to be reading about it even on Wikipedia articles. Unit 4, I looked at a public audience, and I made a video based on the Late Late Show with Conan, or the late shows with Jay Leno and all that. And it was just sit down and kind of an interview. We kind of had fun with this, because it was my roommate and I who did it. So we sat down, we kind of discussed a few things about SPDF, because again, Unit 2, 3, and 4 look at SPDF, because we kind of stayed on that topic and kind of enhanced our ability of understanding SPDF, how to simplify it, how to extrapolate it, and so on. But Unit 4 specifically looks at just SPDF and how it interacts with pathways of the colon cancers and ovarian cancer, breast cancer, and along with lung cancer as well, and glycogen cells and plasmas. So within this specific video that I made, we looked at not just SPDF, but we also jumped into the fact that there are other pathways that are involved in SPDF, which is kind of similar to my lit review part 2 of the course. And finally, the course looked at significantly kind of was a test to me, and it was a significant test on me. I sat there and I really did think about, how I'm gonna not get an A or necessarily what the grade is gonna be, but like how am I gonna make myself a much better student in writing? And I think when you reconsider certain things, you gotta go back and say, what have I learned throughout this course other than SPDF and, NF-kappa B and how to write a lit review or a Wikipedia article or a multimedia presentation. What I think I learned is, navigating through the web of knowledge. And Professor Musselman would totally have to agree, because I remember sitting down with her and her pointing out web of knowledge in a very, very constructive way, in a way that I could totally understand. Another aspect that I think Professor Musselman also taught me throughout this course is that I should sit down, reread everything, and then kind of just go back to it a few days later and then kind of reread it. But I mean, if I had more time, obviously that would be great. But again, it's also a time constraint thing. If it wasn't a time constraint thing, everybody would get an A. Overall, though, I found this course to be a little rigor, but it was also kind of satisfying to have taken this course in the way that it is, and I'm also glad I've had it with Professor Musselman, because she kind of knew the type of student that I was, and kind of enhanced my abilities as well as one of her students. And so I appreciate you listening. Thank you.